Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Sunday night, and it's a little bit of a late live stream as we're starting at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. I thought today I'd wait for the beginning of the precip that is developing overhead, and we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at the system coming up for Wednesday, and we are going to then uh, look at the long range. So let's get right to it here. We take a look at the local radar shot, and this is the radar that's centered out of New York City, starting to see precipitation uh, blossom out, uh, especially in the last couple of hours. It's taken a while for it to get going. Most of the models didn't really indicate that the radar was going to start getting active until after 8 or 9 o'clock. So that seems to be in line with what is going on here. We've got snow that's actually breaking out across northern Connecticut and back through areas in the lower Hudson Valley. And I actually have sleet out my way. I'm in central Long Island, and the radar echoes are all moving to the east. And we have some more precip that's developing down in central and South Jersey, and that is in the form of rain. So we'll get the wider radar view here. And here we go. We'll start to get the ball rolling. And we'll get that radar. Where did it go? Oh boy. It's one of those days, folks, I have to tell you. Okay, let's bring up the radar. All right. Now I should see it. Yep, there it is. Okay, sorry. It's a little bit disorganized here tonight, but the radar has actually blossomed out quite a bit in the last, as I said, in the last couple of hours. You can see it here on the wider view, an extensive amount of precip that is showing up from central New Jersey, south and west, down into Maryland and Delaware, and into southeastern Pennsylvania. Looking at the temperature profiles from earlier, at least into southeast PA, we were seeing temperatures that were generally around the freezing mark, some places a degree higher, some places a degree lower, and even up into some areas in northeastern Pennsylvania. When the precip wasn't heavy enough, it was coming down in the form of some freezing rain. You had to go up maybe about 500 to 1,000 feet, and you start to find some snow. But this is going to blossom out as snow across upstate New York and through Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. The rain snow line with this is probably going to wind up somewhere just slightly north of New York City, through Long Island Sound, and perhaps touching the south shore of Connecticut when this is all said and done. The air aloft at the moment is still cold enough, so once we get into a little more intensity, we'll see some snowflakes come into the mix, and then we'll watch this all gradually move northeastward in through New England, where there should be a fairly sizable snowfall out of this. Here's the Weather Service forecast. You haven't seen this too often in southeastern New England this winter, if hardly at all, in and around parts of Rhode Island and southeast Mass. The Weather Service forecasting some 5 and 6 inch amounts. That might be a tad high. uh, I think 3 to 5 is probably a pretty good range for the top end in this area, and north of 84 in Connecticut and across the southern half of Massachusetts out to about Boston. And we've got some 3 and 4 inch amounts also in the Hudson Valley. I think Albany's actually going for some on the top of their range up to about 6 in some places. And of course, the amounts tail off as you go south because of the fact that this is one of those situations where a handful of miles, where the surface low is moving into the primary going into Pennsylvania and the secondary developing off the New Jersey coast. If it was just a hair further south, you would have brought that rain snow line south of New York City down to about Trenton and Philadelphia. But this winter, these sorts of it's not to be the way the pattern is. And just going back with the snowfall amounts, and I have this tailed out through Monday afternoon because I wanted to keep the system from Wednesday out of the picture here at the moment. But you see the snowfall amounts here generally up back to about, you know what, I rather should freshen this up. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of a little bit behind tonight. So let's freshen up and get a new one. That'll be the easiest thing to do. Just realized that some of the snow from there was back on an older map. So let's freshen it up. So here are your amounts here for southeastern New England. Again, I have it through Monday afternoon with the lesser amounts as you go west in and around the Great Lakes, which makes complete sense. Just some 1 inch amounts being shown here. And then, of course, we're going to take a look at, this is going to take us into Wednesday afternoon so we can add the next system to the equation. So you're going to have to subtract some numbers out here. Some 4, 5, 6 inch amounts in the southwest as more energy starts to come in, and a relaxation here in the west because the energy that's come in with that western trough is now being sent eastward. If we pop up out through Wednesday, you see how it blossoms out amounts in the southwest even further, going out up to a foot or more, and you start to pick up a little more action again up in the northwest, but it looks like it's away from the major cities. And in the east, this area down into southern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey, down through Maryland. Now, the Weather Service here putting up some pretty hefty amounts with the system for Wednesday, late Tuesday night, Wednesday, and that's going to be moving northward. I'm a little bit dubious of the numbers. And by the way, you could see that on this map how the offices don't necessarily talk to each other, because the forecast amounts in Pennsylvania are from the the Weather Service office at State College in Central PA. They don't forecast for on the Maryland side. All of a sudden, you step over the border from Pennsylvania to Maryland, you jump from 2 inches to 7 inches. So you can tell here that one office was relying on one set of models and another office is relying on another. Also, another variable to this is that the timestamps here, when they do their maps, they may not have gone out far enough to add this. I'd like to think that there's a certain degree of consistency with these digital forecasts when you see something as glaring as this, because either they don't think that it's going to be anything remotely close to what the offices of the South think, or they are just not, they haven't gone out yet far enough to put in the Wednesday numbers. So we'll have to figure out which one of those issues it happens to be. There's your radar again. We'll take a look. By the way, these were the snow amounts in the last 72 hours. And all of the action in the last 3 days out in the western part of the United States. But if we take this down, if I can bring the menu back up, now my menu's disappeared. This is going to be a live stream to remember here, the way things are going. So let's see the 24-hour snowfall. All right, so this is in the last 24 hours. The action out in the plains and on up into the northern plains and into the parts of the Rockies, and you're seeing all that action out here that occurred in the last 24 hours with basically from 4 to as much as a foot of snow that fell there. Does not count what has fallen during the daytime today. I think they only update this once a day. So this is as of 7 a.m. this morning. So we don't have the additional snows that might have fallen after that. The latest surface map, which should have just updated to the 0Z map, shows you the dilemma with the primary low in southeast Ohio, kind of a broad low center here. And the high is not, unlike these other systems, you don't have the high pressing down at all. You've got southerly isobars there across Pennsylvania back through New Jersey. So you've got a light wind off the water. That's probably, at least the fact that the wind is light is slowing the warming of the coastal areas to some degree. But the fact that you don't have that high pressing down with at least a little bit of cold air is why the coastal cities from New York City on and the areas on south are going to be dealing with a changeover to rain or just plain rain. That low is going to start to develop in the pressure weakness that's going to occur off the Delaware and the New Jersey coast later tonight and into tomorrow. Just to summarize with watches and warnings, getting ready for the next winter storm in the southwest. So we have winter storm warnings up through much of the northern half of Arizona and the northern half of New Mexico with surrounding advisories. And in the east, we have something that we haven't had, and that's a winter storm warning up for Providence. So winter storm warnings up, excuse me, for parts of Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts with surrounding advisories everywhere else. A rare occurrence this winter indeed for a system where it's going to wind up that some coastal area could get a little bit more than some of the inland spots. All right, rolling along, just going to jump off to the weather models. Why don't we take a look? Let's start with the, we're going to start with the HRRR. And we'll bring that up because that's the short range models. And we have the latest, which is only going to go out 12 hours. So let's take a look at what it does. And we're getting that lead shot of precip here. You see that sleet all over Long Island, just south of New York City. And the little snow mixes in there by the time we get to 1 o'clock in the morning. And that sleet rain line just kind of straddles it by the time we get to 4 a.m. And by 11 o'clock, by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, snowing in northwest New Jersey, through the Hudson Valley and all of Connecticut. At least from the standpoint of the HRRR, that rain snow line never quite makes it much further north than the immediate coast. This is just barely far enough north with the warm air, barely. And then this secondary starts to form and moves out. Look where the primary is. Primary winds up being still analyzed, shown on the map near Binghamton tomorrow morning. I mean, that's usually not good to keep precipitation as all snow along the coast, and then out it goes. The new NAM probably follows along the same lines, and indeed, you can see it's mostly sleet now that goes over to rain, and then the low, there's your secondary low. Here's your primary. Primary in western Pennsylvania disappears. There's your secondary east of the New Jersey coast, and then that moves away out to the northeast. The NAM does much more with this over southeastern New England, over Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire than the HRRR does. The NAM might be a little bit overdone, and the HRRR perhaps a little bit underdone. But the bottom line is this is going to be a moderate event throughout just inland of the coast, up the Hudson Valley, and through New England, and through southern and central New England, and then out it goes as the low moves away to the northeast. It's pretty straightforward here. All right, now let's take a look. Let's start looking at the next one. And we'll start with the NAM model. Now, I am going to bring this out. You start to see this area of dark blue snow that the model blossoms out by Wednesday morning across northern Virginia through Maryland, not knocking on the door, just about to get into Baltimore, nothing yet at Philadelphia. It's a fairly narrow area of snow, and then you go to sleet, and then it moves it up to the north. But watch, if you notice that the area of snow holds together up until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it starts to thin out as it nears New York City and goes into New England, to where it's almost down to next to nothing at some point here on Wednesday night. And what's happening is, unlike the last event, while these two events are similar, the one for Wednesday and the next one for later this week, similar to the one, the one for Wednesday, similar to the one that we had last Tuesday. The difference is that high, because this high moves out straight east offshore instead of moving up into northern Maine and up through New Brunswick. It moves off the coast near Cape Cod, and that allows warming to start getting involved here during Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening. So you start to erode the area. The lives, we've had a little bit of a signal interruption. And if this starts happening, I'm going to cut. That's why I'm trying to kind of rush through this live stream as quickly as I can. But you've got this strong ridge here in the east that just gets stronger over the next couple of days. Just watching it here, you can see that it just pops up and then just stays there. All the energy is getting sent back out into the west toward the Great Lakes. That's where the deep trough is out in the west. That is the constant here. You've got this really deep trough that's out in the western part of the United States. It's still there through much of this week. Big ridge in the east, and you just can't get a big snowstorm out of something like this. If you haven't watched it yet, go to the instruction on my YouTube channel. Go to the instructional video and look at my um, video on the snowfall maps, because once again, this is where you can't really use these. Okay, out in an event like this. Look at what it's doing down in parts of Virginia. It's producing amounts of 20 inches plus in some areas. I can tell you right now, folks, that ain't going to happen. There's not going to be a foot to a foot and a half of snow in southern Pennsylvania out of this system. It's just not a realistic view because of the fact that you're going to be dealing with a system that's only going to be snowing for about 6 hours of time, if that. If we use the positive snow growth maps, it cuts the amounts in half. They're a little bit more reasonable, but I still believe that those numbers are too high. I'm going to bring up my early call snow forecast map that I did for. It doesn't go far enough south, but I'll show you the map that I'm drawing that I have for Wednesday. If it will load, you can tell I'm having issues today. But here we go. And this is what I'm doing. All right, this is my early call. The northern half of New Jersey, the northern half of Pennsylvania, 1 to 3 inches before it goes to sleet. And for Long Island, I've just got an inch or two, and same for southern New England. Looking at in the areas where they've got the max amounts, I just did not feel comfortable going higher than 3 inches in parts of southern Pennsylvania, maybe 4 as you get down a bit further south near the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, and then going south and west of there. I have Washington and Baltimore in a 2 to 3 inch band, and I have about 3 inches forecast for where I have Philadelphia. But again, notice as you go north and you start to see that snow area eroding because of the high going out where it is and warmer air coming in at all levels of the atmosphere, you're going to see that area of snow gradually diminish once it moves north of central New Jersey. So this is going to be a little bit of an unusual situation. Normally with systems that when you get more snow south of New York City, it's because storms are passing by to your south. In this instance, the precipitation is coming into the area south of New York City while there is still a fair amount of cold air, but it's not moving out fast enough so that, and then the cold high moves out and then it all erodes and you again see lesser amounts. So I am probably on the low side of many of the forecasts that may already be out there. I think some of them are just way overdone. In a winter where you've been hard pressed to get an inch of snow in some places, I just would have having a difficult time coming to grips with the idea that somebody's going to wind up with a foot of snow out of this. It's just ridiculous in my view. At the moment. And look, if I wind up being wrong, if I start to see that maybe my logic is wrong in how I'm thinking this out, I will be the first one to admit that I'm wrong. But to me, it's very hard to fight. There's the low moving out, high pressure building in for Tuesday. This time around, you notice that cold high is not really up in Quebec. It's down in over Lake Erie and moves up into at least the H print on the GFS is up in New Hampshire, and then it drops down near Cape Cod. You can see even on the GFS, here's where you have that cold air wedged down, and you start to see snow in southwestern Virginia. This is early Wednesday morning, 1 a.m. By 7 a.m., you've got this sort of blossoming area of snow up through Virginia into Washington, D.C., with sleet and freezing rain down in southwest Virginia. And then we move it up to the north. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, still only up to central New Jersey. That high is holding it back. And now you've got those isobars. Instead of being more of a northeast isobar like it was last Tuesday, it's more of a southeast isobar this time around. So a lot of the low levels are going to warm, the mid levels are going to warm, and then that snow area just thins out. And look where the low is going. Northwest Missouri on the primary to Chicago, and you get a little secondary low that forms over Delaware, and then on it goes on up to the northeast. And another system, by the way, will probably follow over the weekend. This one looks like it's going to cut toward the Great Lakes, or at least try to cut to the Great Lakes, much like the one from last week and the one from Wednesday. So there's a very much a rhyming pattern going forward this coming week. Take a look at the jet stream. We showed this. This is the GFS. I put a 16-day view here, and when you loop it, you'll start to see a few things happen. First off, for the first 7 or 8 days, the Pacific doesn't change. Okay, it's trough in the west continues, ridge in the east continues. But as we get toward the latter part of the forecast period, you start to see things change across the Pacific, and you begin to see the trough shift in the east. But we're talking now toward the end of the month and into the first days of March. That Pacific jet we pointed out has been a very, very tough nut to crack here. And I know the snow lovers keep waiting for it to happen. Here's a view of the Atlantic side, and we've noted the problems in the Atlantic side in that there's been a distinct lack of storminess here. You're going to see a big trough develop south of Greenland. That's going to pop that ridge up in the eastern part of the United States. You see it there, troughing out in the middle. And there's your big ridge in the east. And then that's going to start to pull out. You start to get as we get into the long range, you'll see that ridge begin to flatten out in the east. As the Pacific changes, then the Atlantic side begins to change, and you start to get a little more traffic out in the Atlantic. There's more shortwave troughs out there, more storms out there toward the end of the forecast period. Very important that this happens. And here's the view from North America. Deep trough in the west, ridge in the east. And then as that Pacific jet begins to change, there you start to see the trough begin to shift into the eastern part of the United States. At least that's the model's plan at this time. We've seen this advertised from time to time before. It doesn't always come to pass. So we'll just see how models play this out this week. They've been trying to show that, I mentioned that we've seen the teleconnections attempting to show a change in the upper air pattern in the long range, and all last week it kept showing it around the last day and never really moved it. As each day went past, it was still on the last day of the 16-day forecast. So we basically went through another week. Today it's begun to push it back into around day 11 and 12. I think basically what's going to happen is that when we get into that first couple of weeks of March, we're going to see this Pacific jet pattern relax enough that it will probably allow for temperatures to chill off. I don't think it's going to get very cold, but we'll see temperatures perhaps be down near average or maybe a little bit below average for a consistent period for that 2-week period. Maybe embedded in there might be an opportunity for a coastal snowfall or perhaps a widespread snowfall, but that's going to be your last chance for anything to happen in my view. So sorry for the late start, everybody. I just hope the signal, it was that one buffer issue, and then it looks like it came back. I hope you're not having buffering from your end. Robert Hurley, that late forming secondary, should keep Boston all snow. I think so. Boston to me looked like, when I looked at the numbers, I'm going to pull up the numerical Foose numbers here. Good to see Lord Kate on, by the way, as always. And just also a quick hello to those that are watching from the app tonight, those who are watching from SS Storm Chase and Forecast team page, from the um, uh, my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Storm Watch. All right, so the NAM gives New York 34 hundredths. Um, and the levels, the top levels here are actually kind of warm. They're +3. So this model at NAM model run was actually a bit warmer. 0, -1, +3. The bottoms are cold, borderline cold. By tomorrow morning, they're all 0, 0, 0. You really need them to be at least a couple of degrees colder, particularly that high level. You want to see that high level at about -2, -3, and it's just not there. Boston gets 27, 41, 52 hundredths of liquid, and it's all snow there based on what I'm looking at with the temperature data there, Robert. It's -1, -5, -2, -0, -5, -7, and -4, -7, -13. So that's all cold enough for all snow in Boston, in my view. So 27, 41, 52. So that says 5 inches if every drop, if every snowflake falls, if every snowflake counts, Boston would wind up with 5, at least according to the NAM. I think 2 to 4, 3 to 5 to me makes the most sense with respect to what I'm seeing here. Someone's going to be disappointed at that front end thump in Maryland and Pennsylvania, Timothy Veltman. I agree. The models are just crazy, and of course, the snow maps were flying late this afternoon and tonight all across social media. Everybody was going off the deep end with that. Alcina Al-Wazali, yeah, it has just not been Long Island's winter at all. Areas to the north, to the south, and the west, and yeah, that snow hole is set up the way it's set up. Every year there's one somewhere. Delvin, sunset in Boston, impressive 5:20, 40 minutes before that magic time of 6 o'clock. And you know what? Before you know it, in less than a month, you're going to be at that 6 o'clock sunset. And in a few weeks will be a daylight saving time. So it's actually going to be 7 o'clock. I'm not a fan of daylight saving time because then all the weather models come out an hour later. Christopher Shevchik, looks like a layer in the upper atmosphere is above 32. The top layer there, yeah, above about above 7,000 or 8,000 feet, and that's why we're seeing sleet coming down. Jason Barry, Weather Service showing 4 to 6 there. You don't know how that's. I don't know where you are, Jason. Let me know where you are. 3 to 6 for Albany and a winter weather advisory. 4 to 7 south of Boston. For a winter storm warning. Does an inch really make that much of a difference? The offices all have their criteria. Dutchess County in the Hudson Valley, which is not that far from where I am, their Albany's jurisdiction, their criteria for a winter storm warning is 6. But if you go one county south to Putnam, it's 4. So there have been often times where you've got snow amounts being forecasted that are lower for Putnam under a winter storm warning and higher for Dutchess under a winter weather advisory. It kind of makes sense. The further north you go, the criteria should be higher for a winter storm warning because of the fact that the further north you go, the more snow you wind up getting. But you're going to be you're going to be, there's always going to be that where's the border line, and when you get to it and you cross it, you're going to have these moments where these sort of silly things show up, like I just described with say Putnam and Dutchess County. Just see Ethan Kerr, Izzy D, exactly. It feels like parts of the North Ocean, South Monmouth County are the ultimate snow hole. Yeah. You go to from basically in New Jersey, from North Ocean County through Monmouth County, Long Island this year, southern Connecticut, down through, well, Rhode Island at least is going to get some snow out of this, and so will even southern Connecticut. I mean, it's literally the rain snow line's probably going to get to 95 on the Connecticut side and come to a screeching halt. Weather Channel, Mary Schenkel has 5 to 8 for Hagerstown, Maryland. Well, that's a start. I mean, you're further west, so I mean, the 5 might not surprise me. I have you in a 4+ zone, but I just don't know that it's going to be much more than that. Not from what I'm seeing at the moment. Perhaps maybe if the subsequent runs start to show the cold high holding in a bit differently, we could probably see amounts get massaged higher, but I just don't feel comfortable doing that. 5 inches of snow near Toms River so far, 51 last year, already more than the winter of 2011-12 when we had 1.8 inches of snow, Ethan. One of the things that came to my mind today, by the way, because this is, a few people have been discussing the decadal pattern of that has been in place for the last 18 winters, where the vast majority of those winters have really favored snow in the I-95 corridor, unlike in the prior 30 years. And I've spoken about this before, from 1970 to 2000. This winter, the subpar winters that we've had up until now, which would be 06, 07, 07, 08, and 11 and 12, and 01, 02, those 4 subpar winters of the last 18 have come differently. They've all come under the guise of either a strong El Nino or a strong La Nina, and so you kind of understand that. Yeah, we have a weak El Nino. The Weather Service just declared the El Nino the other day, so we basically had a weak El Nino going on. And yet, this winter, unlike those, this winter to me really resembles the winters that we used to have in the 70s, 80s, and 90s here in the coastal areas. A lot of the winters were like this. We had event after event after event where the snow on the coast was basically next to nothing, and then you go inland by about 30, 40, 50 miles and further north, and there you had mostly snow. This winter, to me, had that signature to it. And it's led some to question, well, maybe, is this the end of the decadal pattern? I would just say this. One season does not an end of the pattern make. But if next winter we're sitting here doing the same thing, that might raise a few eyebrows. And then if we go to a third winter in a row where we're doing the same thing, then you have to really wonder whether that decadal pattern is over. Because when we were in the other pattern, the opposite side of it, the I-95 corridor would have a solid winter maybe every 6 or 7 years, and the rest of the time it was just kind of like this. And every once in a while you'd get the pattern set up in a certain way that it would favor snow, but that would be the exception rather than the rule, as opposed to what we've been experiencing since the year 2000, since the winter of 2000 2001, where it's been the rule more than the exception. So we're going to have to wait a long time, because we're not even done with this winter, and we're not even going to begin to talk about next winter until we get to next winter. Okay. All right, folks, let's call it a night. It's getting a little late. Thanks for being here tonight. We'll be back to normal tomorrow, 7 o'clock live stream on YouTube, and also the Joe and Joe Weather Show tomorrow night at 9:25 on Facebook. If you haven't done it yet, download my free weather app on Google Play or on the App Store. It's compatible to all mobile devices, and it's absolutely free. And if you really like it and you'd like to support it, because it is free of advertisement, and I'd like to keep it that way, you can subscribe to Patreon from there. Just click on the link that's on the homepage on the app, and it's only $2 a month, and it'll keep everything going. Peter Bicker, why is the NAM going so crazy high with the snow totals? Well, as I told you earlier, Peter, it doesn't know how to look at sleet and freezing rain. It just looks at all of that and says it's snow. And when you look at it off the snow maps, at the very least, you shouldn't look at the 10-to-1 regular snow map. You should look at the positive snow growth map. And I think even there, it's running too high. Who wants me? Well, ZD says, I always associate winters with at least one snow event over 6 inches. Well, for a lot of the area, that was the November 15th storm, believe it or not. Um, what did I just saw? You might double your. Oh, to Delvin in Boston. Yes. Boston will actually, after tomorrow morning, will be ahead of us. We'll be ahead of New York City. So that'll leave New York City at the bottom because it'll be behind Philadelphia and behind Boston and behind Washington. So it'll be some winter if it turns out that this area finishes with less snow than literally everybody surrounding the New York City area. All right, folks, have a great night and a good holiday on Monday. If you got the day off, I do not. Enjoy, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Okay.